everyone. Welcome to TSP Weekly. This is your tech startup podcast for Friday, February 13th, 2015. The Friday the 13th edition. I think It's the first time we recorded on a Friday, actually. So in Canada, for those who, or at least in Ontario, because it's different in different provinces, in Ontario, we have a holiday on Monday when we typically record. It's Family Day on Monday. And so we had to bump the recording back to before the weekend rather than after. Up. Yeah, I bumped it up. That's right.
So both of us will be spending the weekend, Monday with our families. All the businesses are closed.
Yep.
Conestoga College is
closed.
Restaurants
Restaurants might be open, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
usually
that's
they're
probably
open.
A good idea.
Yeah, but it's freaking cold here. It's about, minus 20 something today. At least it was earlier when I was leaving the house. So I don't know if we'll be spending any time outside with families. But anyway, so it's the first Friday the 13th edition here. We are also recording in a completely new location. We are at Innovation Guelph, in Guelph.
The heart of downtown Guelph. With a view.
Surrounded by train tracks and construction cranes and lots of stuff around here, which is great. And talking to a new kind of batch of startups, a new aspect of the startup scene out here. A bit smaller than we're used to in Kitchener-Waterloo, but exciting nonetheless. So let's do some introductions. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Darren Conley. I'm a local tech entrepreneur in Kitchener-Waterloo. With me is my co-host, fellow tech entrepreneur, Stephen Campbell. How are you doing today, Stephen? Good?
I'm doing well. I'm not as cold as I thought I'd be.
The indoors probably helps with that aspect.
Every article of clothing I have on that I own feels like.
You look well layered today,
yes,
actually.
It's all about layers in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Well, joining us today is the lovely Holly Hall. Holly Hall. It's
now,
a nice
Holly
symmetry.
Hall or Holly Holler?
Well, my stage name is Holly Hall.
Okay.
But if you look up my incorporated business name, it'll say Holly Holler.
So should we call you Holly Hall today?
Holly Hall.
Holly Hall. Perfect.
Welcome.
Holly's from Studios FM and a new startup based around podcasts, actually, I believe. Podcasts and
live digital radio.
Yep. Excellent. So right up our alley. Hopefully we'll learn a few things ourselves today. And,
I think it'll be virtually impossible for us not to learn something today.
I think so, because we're still relatively newcomers to this whole scene. How are you doing today, Holly? Good?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah. Fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're drinking something colorful.
Raspberry tea.
Raspberry tea.
Herbal.
Yeah. Herbal raspberry tea.
Always nice on a cold winter's day.
Yes.
So Studios FM. I guess that's the name of the business as well as like the web address, studios.fm.
Absolutely. Studios.fm.
Works well. What is Studios FM?
Mm-hmm. Studios.fm is based around creating the back end and the front end for people to easily and automate their digital radio stations.
Okay.
That's really cool.
And so we say back end and front end for a radio station. Like for those who might not be quite as tech savvy as all of us are, what would that entail? Like what happens on the back end and what happens on the front end of what you're doing?
Okay, so the front end is the website presence.
Right.
And it's also a part of the front end browser presence for the radio show broadcasters and for the podcasters as well, because it has the ability for podcasting. The back end would be similar to what you would see in an actual brick and mortar studio, where you've got your switchboards, your call-in area where you can play your cues, your commercials, and where you do all of your rebroadcasting and set up your 24/7 scheduling.
Gotcha. So, and is this all done through like a web interface? Is this all online?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yep. Browser based.
And you can do all that with the browser? I mean, when it comes to equipment and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, my programmers for the radio portion of it, which is the back end portion of it, is just finishing off the second stage of our switchboard and our automation part. And so we're going to be 3 times the quality of what you normally could get on digital radio, because the internet only gives you so much. I mean, you can have 128K or 3, even a 280K, and you're still only going to, it's feeding through the internet. So you only get so much. So it's the highest that you can possibly get on the internet live. It's real time. So as I'm talking, the person hears me as well. There's not even like a 1 second delay.
That's
and it's kind of neat because our stations like to use chat rooms and interact with chat rooms. So they hear my conversation and they can respond in the chat room immediately rather than I hear it, 3 seconds, even like 30 seconds later, I'm on to a next sentence.
Right.
Right.
And they're asking a question which might have taken them 30 seconds to ask. Right. So
And
now
you
we're
can
a
circle
minute
back.
behind.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really cool that way. So,
So you could have some sort of interface that if I was recording the show as I am right now, I could be staring at my computer screen and I could see questions that people who are listening to me live
Absolutely.
could be popping up on my screen, and I can respond to them in
Absolutely.
real time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Normally with talk radio on digital, there's a call-in phone number, which we provide that as well too. Or there's Skype, which is quite popular.
Sure.
We've got our own chat room, and it will be just click a button on your phone. And
Okay.
it sounds just as good, even over your digital, like your media phone or tablet or your computer.
Okay.
Literally just click a button and you're in the studio.
So I could, in theory, like take live callers as well.
Yep.
And
Yep.
have
When
them
you're
speak,
looking
yeah?
at it visually on the left-hand side, you see a list of your callers. You can mute them, unmute them. You can pop them into a virtual green room and talk to them privately off air. You can raise their volume, lower their volume. In the middle is a chat room, and on the right-hand side is all of your cues that you can upload, download at any time.
Insert into your
That
broadcast.
sounds like an
yeah.
awesomely fun tool to use.
It does.
After doing podcasting for 35 weeks.
Yes.
To be able to have somebody, probably just our wives, but somebody out there.
Or a nice co-op student. Yeah.
That would be
Take
really
care of
neat.
some of that production
Yeah,
stuff.
or even talk
Sure.
to us as we're doing the podcast, right?
Yeah.
What allows for
have an
self-production. So
Yeah.
they put in their own intros, their own outros. The system can automate it too. It will automatically put the intros and outros in, automatically put the commercials in, or you can manually put the commercials in.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
it's
now
pretty neat.
you've given us the pitch, and I think I understand what you've got. So can you back up a little bit and tell us a little bit of the history, or how did you get into it, and who was the team, and where are you at, and some of those kind of backgrounds?
Can I ask one more question just
Absolutely.
about the product? Because that's absolutely, we want to hear about the history of it too. I just want to find out then if could I be broadcasting live as well as recording and then put that up as a
Oh yeah, that's
pre-recorded
exactly
thing
what our
afterwards?
system does, and that's a good
perfect.
question.
Yeah.
So what it's doing is it's actual visual. So you see a clock, it times you in, it tells you you've got 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left. Your show starts. It records the entire show because ours is 55 minutes, but it can be changed to whatever your preferences are. It can even be manual. But at the 55-minute mark in our one station, it ends. Everybody gets kicked out. The recording is up in 1 minute. In that 1 minute time, the recording is sent to the archives automatically. It's sent to the back end to be rebroadcasted at the time that you've chosen for it to be replayed. Right. So let's say 12 hours later, then it'll play 12 hours later.
Sure.
And in that 5 minutes, there's commercials playing. And during that 5 minutes, the system is booting itself up for the next host to come in.
Wow.
Oh, that's really cool.
Sounds complicated, but cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting back to what Stephen asked you, tell us how you got started in all this.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I'll try to make it quick and painless as possible.
like a little
Whatever.
bit.
Like
Yeah.
a little bit.
Sure.
You guys are bad. Okay, it's Friday the 13th. We can do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
You don't want to scare anybody.
Yeah, no, got to be scary. So I basically, I kind of tripped and fell into the business. I've been a fan of talk radio. If anyone's in the local area, I moved here from Toronto, and I was a fan of CFRB, which is the top talk radio station in Canada.
Sure.
So
1010, I think, right?
that's right, 1010. I'm not sure if they go by 1010 anymore. They don't go by CFRB. One or the other since Bell took them over. But
Fair enough.
so I was always fascinated with that. I thought it was a sexy job. Like, wouldn't that be cool to be a broadcaster? And so what I did was I took my hobby, which was doing astrology and dream work, and took it on the internet and started my own show with what's called Blog Talk Radio.
Okay.
Not happy with that system for various reasons. It's a great system for podcasting and other systems, but for going live. And I had a group of people who were like, I want to start my own station.
Yeah.
I stumbled across somebody who wanted to start their own station too. We didn't meet eye to eye. Or more so, he didn't meet my eye. I was okay with him. So I don't know how you say that one.
He was a lot taller than you. Or
Go off and do your own thing. I never actually met him. It was all virtual.
Fair enough.
But he goes, go off and do your own thing. We're too much alike. And I said, okay, fine. So
right.
I did. I started using a system called TalkShoe, and there was a lot of failures in that one. Then I stumbled across somebody who was a hacker at programming, and he kind of put together a conference site where I could call in and do my shows, but it was free conferencing. And I'm a perfectionist, so I was like, I want this to sound like radio. I don't want somebody to call in and hear that they've been connected to a free conferencing website.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
I want to hear that they're listening to A to Zen.fm, which is one of their stations.
Sure.
And so in the meantime, I stumbled across somebody else because I was looking for other solutions on the internet. And I was going to close down. I had a week. Everything was shutting down. I hired developers. They ripped me off and everything. So I was like ready to shut it down. Then this guy comes in like a knight in shining armor and just basically saves the day.
Wow.
So I've been using his system. He's from the States and his background is business as well, but
Sure.
telephony.
Okay.
And he has his own digital telephony business and online e-learning. So he's very familiar with audio and using audio on the internet.
Yeah.
And it's been a 2.5-year relationship. It's struggling now because we've gotten some funding and a hobby that was his hobby. He found it fascinating to try to recreate the digital world radio wise.
Yeah.
But now that I've got the money that I threw at him, he's pressured to get all of this work done. So we're hoping it will be ready to launch for the public to use in about 2 months' time.
Okay.
How long's the development cycle been for you?
Too long.
That's always the case.
This was supposed to be done last April, and then it was going to be done September, and then it was going to be done December, and then it was January 1st, and now we're into February.
Yeah.
And that's typical.
Yeah.
From what I've heard.
It always takes
developers.
longer than you expect it's going to take, right? Especially
It's-
when you're dealing with programming stuff, right? There's always a new thing that breaks just when you think you got it working, right?
Exactly.
So.
And it's insane. And then because technology changes so quickly, as he's developing it, he's coming up with new things, bells and whistles that he can add to the system, right?
Right.
And then you've got to be mobile and all kinds of things.
Well, there is something to be said for the principle of like just put out something that works and then add the bells and whistles to it as you go after you have the working version, right? But
Better
That's
done
what we've
than
been
perfect.
doing. Yeah, that's what we've been
Absolutely.
doing.
So if I can ask, like, what did you find was lacking in the other systems that you were using previously? Like, what
was the pain?
Yeah, what wasn't living up to your standards?
Yeah. One of them was the systems didn't allow for 24/7 broadcasting. So if you use a system like 365, for instance, anything that you don't have to be a tech wizard to, fill up a room with and do it yourself, like Sam Broadcaster, for instance, there was no automation to it. So I could do live shows, but in between I'd have to play generic music.
Right. Yeah.
And I wanted to showcase my host. There's two parts to it. There's the frustration on the technology side of it, and there's the frustration of the what the hosts and the broadcasters expect for exposure.
Right.
So if I'm giving them a system where they do a live show once a week, but they're rebroadcasted 6 times a week, that gives them more bang for their buck.
Right.
Sort of thing, more exposure, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is online blogging and online magazines was popular, so I wanted to build a website around that. Most of the people that are doing shows that I'm familiar with are self-help gurus,
Right.
whether it be in the business world. Everyone's can be a self-help guru right now,
Yeah,
right? And
sure.
so they're authors, they're writers, they're bloggers, they're speakers, so they wanted a platform for that too. So that was the front end portion of it. And the back end portion of it was the automation. I'm a lazy entrepreneur, and I don't want to have to sit there and move everything around after a show is done.
Right.
And I don't want to have to produce every single show. I wanted it to be easily self-produced, similar to what Blog Talk has.
Right.
I'd say my closest fan that I sort of watch and want is Blog Talk. The one downfall with Blog Talk is their audio recording is at anywhere from 7 to 11K, which is about the sound of a telephone.
Right.
And if you've ever listened to talk radio and you hear somebody call in who's using a cell phone or a telephone,
Yeah.
you don't want them talking long.
No, it's not as good quality.
No.
And well, Stephen and I too have gotten offers from other startups that have been kind of long distance, like a few Silicon Valley startups and other people who wanted to come on as guests for our show. But for every guest we've ever had, we've always interviewed them live. And the major reason being we didn't want that loss of sound quality between us and the person that we're interviewing. And a lot of times you can get delays in the connections, and even if it's a half a second or a full second delay, it doesn't sound like much, but when you're recording and you're trying to carry on a conversation that's natural, it can make it very unnatural very quickly, right? So,
Exactly.
We would love, I think, to be able to open some more doors for our own podcast production, to be able to have people on from outside of the local area here. Although we love focusing on local tech startups, but to occasionally have some people on from California or from New York, and,
absolutely,
and not have to worry about the quality suffering significantly that way, right?
Well, our slogan is "Radio Without Borders."
I
Excellent.
like that.
Now you know.
Maybe we'll call Shrad in New York and see if we can do a test run with them from Wage Point.
It'd be nice to do some follow-ups with past guests as well.
I actually Studios.fm would love to facilitate in that.
Sure. Now, have you guys set pricing and the whole business plan side of it? Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel comfortable telling us?
Well, it's scaling.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So it all depends on what you want. Obviously, if somebody wants a radio station and they want the switchboard with the telephony involved and Skype involved, that's going to be our highest price point.
Sure.
So if you're looking at the back end and the front end, a full web development, so basically hands-free. You tell us you want a radio station, and within 2 weeks, you have everything that you need on the web, everything but a computer. We won't provide you with a computer.
Right.
But
No
everything.
problem.
Okay, so that's what you'll get. So the price point right now is $1,500 a month.
Okay.
But we are going to, as we grow, we'll be able to bring that price point down. And people have asked me this before. Wouldn't you just take the money yourself and then leave? Because $1,500 a month, some people go, whoa, that's expensive. And other people go, that's it.
Right.
So
Right.
it's we seem to be in the middle.
Yeah, and it would depend on your listenership and the kind of advertising you can draw and that sort of thing, right? So, yeah.
Right, which if you're familiar with, and a little segue here, and I'll come back.
Yeah.
Female, I can do that. So
Sure. We're very open to anything here.
the Nelson report just came out, which is showing how much people are listening to digital radio and digital content.
Yep.
So the Nelson report gives you an idea. You can look it up. You can probably just Google it. I found it through one of my LinkedIn groups. But it gives you an idea of what the digital listenership is, whether it be podcasts or live, and it's giving advertisers and subscribers and sponsors an idea of how much money can be made in advertising, because that's what's holding old time radio back.
Yes,
is their module for making money.
Right.
Which is usually their local.
Yeah,
which is great,
and it's a relatively small coverage area compared to the entire internet, right? And local radio kind of is covering, maybe a town or city over from your broadcast point, unless you're like a big national kind of level broadcaster, maybe. But yeah, of course, and so that makes sense. If you can draw on the advertising that's not just locally based advertising, then that's a whole new ball game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we hope that Studios.fm will move into the world of local radio as well.
Sure.
If you guys have kids, right? I have a teenager. I get into the car. She does not want to listen to the radio.
Right.
She wants to listen to her phone. My car, she's very disappointed in because it's just a basic model and doesn't have any Bluetooth. But of course, my husband's car got a Bluetooth. So right away, next thing you know, we're forcefully listening to whatever she wants from her phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And that's the way it is. That's the wave of the future. So if you think that you're going to, like the baby boomers, especially in a town like Guelph, we've got a lot of older people in Guelph.
Yep.
But not every city is like that. And you've got if your demographics is between, 20 to 45, they're not listening to regular radio.
Yeah, the way I consume media has changed.
Right.
And really changed quickly in the last year or two. I've dropped Rogers, so I don't watch any TV anymore. And I don't, I drive from Kitchener to Guelph here for Innovation Guelph. And it's about 25 to 45 minutes every day. So I don't want to listen to Hotel California ever again on the radio. It's not giving me anything anymore.
Or the next wedding show that's going to play at the Ramada.
That's right. So I'm trying to listen to podcasts now, and it's so frustrating for me because I have to use my phone. I don't have an expensive, fancy radio in my car yet either.
Yeah.
And it's.
Do you have an audio input? Can you just run?
I don't
like
think
a jack into it?
No, so I'm doing headphones into my phone in my car.
Oh, dear.
And the phone, like I'm trying some different mobile apps to listen to podcasts, and they're all pretty terrible so far.
Right.
Well, the new one coming out is CarPlay. You've heard of CarPlay?
I have not, no.
Okay, CarPlay is developed by Apple.
Yep.
They're behind. I mean, I follow this development. So when I get some of my clients going, what's taking you so long? We're getting so frustrated. I'm like, why don't you take a look at Apple? They've been going to design this CarPlay for the last 2 years now, and it's still not out.
So is that hardware or software? Or?
Well, what it is, it's a software. See, what it was is that digital radio was trying to be put in the car. So you got your GM, BMW came out with it first. Some of the more expensive cars came out with it first, Jaguars. But they've decided we're not spending money on time on this anymore because we cannot supply every single app that everybody will want to use in the world in our car.
Yeah.
So Apple designed CarPlay, and all of the new car technologies will work with CarPlay. So you have CarPlay on your app, on your phone. You have CarPlay app on your dashboard in your computer, car. And whatever apps you've chosen to put into that CarPlay will be in your car.
So they sync.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so they sync together.
Yep.
Right.
Interesting.
So that would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah. You know what you can do?
That means I need to buy a new car?
Well, no. But you know what you can do in the meantime as an easier way to avoid having to wear headphones in the car, because that can be dangerous if there's like sirens or something you're not hearing.
A lot of trains.
Yeah, there you go. There's I had for a while a little gadget for my iPod that just stuck onto the bottom of it that broadcasts like an FM radio signal, and you just you can find them easily. You just turn your radio station to like static. You're on any FM kind of frequency where there's not an already not a station already broadcasting, and then it's like a little broadcaster that broadcasts to your car radio, right? And sometimes you get a little bit of interference or static here and there, but it's a much better alternative. So I think for like $10,
I'm in.
You can get something like that.
You can get
a
lot of those little speakers that you put in, and you can plug it into your I don't know, your lighter in your car, and it's it puts speakers connected to your iPhone.
Yeah,
I've got
those,
you can hear.
But if I could use my car stereo, that would be really cool.
Oh yeah, and that's the really cool thing about going back. Another segue to studios.fm is we're stereo.
Right.
So if of course, if you've got a mono mic and you're putting into a mono computer, you're going to get mono, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But if you've got a stereo setup like this one here, where maybe I'm being heard, you've got it set up so I'm being heard on the left and he's being heard on the right, then that's how
we're not quite that fancy, but yes, the potential is there. Yeah.
Funny you noticed. Thanks for noticing.
We have to edit that part out. Well, you will be doing that when we launch you with studios.fm. Do some beta testing for us.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, so you'll be able to do. We provide that stereo output as well too, especially if you've got commercials that you're being played. You want to hear it in stereo in your car. You don't want to hear everything in your car from one side.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So if you've got like I said, we want to go after local radio stations, and I'm not talking about. I don't know if we'd go after the old local radio station. They've already got hundreds of thousands of dollars, in their brick and mortars. Yeah. But there's new places like Elora here and Fergus here. They're struggling with their local radio station.
Yeah.
And they got the CRTC laws. They've got all the money they got to spend on the equipment in the building. They could do this and have a radio station locally. Yeah. And I know that's an older area as well too, so you might not get the listenership there. But in newer towns, like when Brampton was new, they're popping up all over the place.
Sure.
Right. Guelph is going to turn over.
Yeah.
Give it about 5-10 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more younger than older.
Well, and we were talking about how listening styles change over time as well, right? And I think, like you were saying, your daughter wants to play her music in the car. I remember as a teenager forcing my parents, bringing, it was tapes back then, but bringing tapes in the car, forcing my parents to listen to them on the tape deck when we were teens. But same thing. Like at some point you start getting sick of the top 40 or the maybe it's the oldies now on the radio, and you want to hear people talking. You want to hear something that's stimulating your mind, and if you're going to connect into that material, it's not stuff that you can just necessarily stream from your iPod from your existing library. You have to download it or find it being broadcast somewhere. So
I mean, I love talk radio, and I find that I don't find that it's because I'm I started at 25.
Sure.
And I got addicted because I was going to a house with 70 and 80-year-olds that were listening to it every day.
Sure.
Right? So I was very rare at my age. But in this day and age where the mind is chattering on and on and on, and if you got a 45-minute ride, you don't really want, even when you listen to music, your mind still chatters.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to conversation or information, then you're engaged.
Yeah.
And that 45 minutes is like a 5-minute drive.
Yeah, we were just talking about that this morning. A couple of the people that I talked to, as we do a podcast, so we talk to everybody about it. And some people are saying that they're not able to do anything when they're listening to talk. If they're cooking, that's okay, or doing some light art. But one of the girls was saying that her friend was actually listening to a podcast and reading a book at the same time.
Not
that
possible.
was so it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, how do you do that? There's too much processing. So for me, it has to be the right sort of time, set and setting.
Yeah.
And I am interested
I
in
think it all depends because we've got our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, right? So I could be working on my website or working on technology on my computer, but I might be listening to something about the abundance of money or, something. So I'm not really listening to it, but my subconscious mind is taking it in. So that's why I'm doing that.
Yep.
Sure.
Right? I'm sort of doing double duty
Sure.
on my brain.
Yep.
But going back to the price point, just to be very quickly about that, we're hoping to bring it about $500 to $800 a month.
Okay.
Make it very reasonable, and it might even be more reasonable as time goes on.
Sure.
With that.
So who is your target market? Like, are you looking for established people that have advertisers, or is it somebody that wants to start talking about model trains and start their own sort of episode about a passion they have, or spiritual healing, or whatever their topic is? Is it both of that, or are you really looking for somebody that's got a listenership and has some monetization going?
Well, that would be bonus. If they had that, then spending $1,500 a month would mean nothing to them.
Sure.
I think really what we're looking for is people who have a passion for starting up their own radio station and bringing in their own content or their own podcasting station. It doesn't always have to be live. Like if you do it without the switchboard, you're looking at probably $600-800 a month, and it's just podcast after podcast after podcast. Because the really cool thing, and I'll get back to that, the really cool thing is that our studios, they're virtual studios, and if you're a podcaster, you have your own studio and it's yours 24/7.
Wow.
So you can do as many podcasts as you want. Yep. Now, I may be the station owner, and I might say you can only go do your show at 2 o'clock every Tuesday. Or let's say every day at 2 o'clock is your show.
Right.
You can do 24 podcasts a day if you want, and those will go into the podcasting archiving system. But only one will play at that time, every week. So everybody knows to tune in. So maybe you might have a theme. For that one.
Sure.
But you can use it, and you can use it for conference calls. You can use it for meetings, everything else for that as well, too. So that's where I get, I feel like a monkey, going from branch to branch, because it can be used for so many things.
Right.
It can be used for the podcasting world is huge on its own. The community.
Yeah.
I think there's a Google Plus community. It's like tens of thousands are in that community.
Yeah.
And some of them already have their own systems at home, and they're quite comfortable with that. And some of them don't want to be bothered with that, or they want to be on the road doing podcasting, doing traveling or food or, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And it could be for live radio as well, for talk radio. It can be used for just music. My goal is actually, I'm fascinated with starting up local radio stations.
Yeah.
In new cities and towns that don't have it, and in other worlds as well too. Not just the United States and Canada, like third world areas, that type. So that they can broadcast to the world as well. 'Cause so far, there's no content. What's the word for it? Mm-hmm. Where they say you can't say this and you can't say that.
Right, censorship?
Censorship, that's right. Thanks, I lost that word for a second.
No problem.
Yeah, so it's really hard to say. This whole business has taken a life of its own.
Sure.
And it seems to go in the direction it wants to.
Sure. Well,
So I'm open.
it's interesting with most startups, like once they kind of get their product out there, oftentimes it gets used for things that weren't necessarily planned in the first place, right? Or it becomes more popular kind of for this usage rather than this one, even though the users didn't know about it. I know Groupon, when they started back in the day, now I might get some of these little details wrong, but originally it was supposed to be a platform for funding like charitable causes. And once you get so much money and you hit that tipping point, then the money is sent to the charitable cause. And they found that it actually worked much better for, creating these daily deals where once you get so many people who bought the deal, then the deal activates and then off you go, right?
Yep.
And so it's funny how a system that kind of started in this one thing ended up doing this other thing. And you never know, right? Where things will go once
and
you
have
launch.
to be, as an entrepreneur, you have to be open to that.
Absolutely.
If you stay too narrow-minded on one vision, you can miss so many opportunities because you put blinders on yourself.
Absolutely. Now, you had mentioned earlier that you got some funding, and I just wanted to ask about that part because that's something that a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs, are trying to get that figured out. How can I get some money for this thing? So for you, if you don't mind me asking then, how did you find yourself arranging the funding that you were able to get?
Well, the first chunk, which went to a developer that didn't work out so well, was personal funding.
Okay.
I went to family. I went to hosts that I already had, and they were already paying me, I can't remember, but let's say $100 a month.
Sure.
And I said, if you give me 10 times that, I'll give you a year's worth of shows.
Right.
So I was getting, $1,000 at a drop. So I got $6,000 on that one.
Right.
The next one I actually got through Innovation Guelph. So I'll give a plug here. I met somebody at Innovation Guelph who's now my silent business partner. And he put down a ton of money at first. And the second part was actually a course I took at Innovation Guelph for crowdfunding.
Yep.
And that was crowdfunding. You really got to do a lot of preparation work before you go ahead. And it seems to work crazy for some people, not for others. And I would blame myself on that because although I'm great visionary, I'm not the best journalist, so probably didn't present myself, right. People probably looked at it and went cross-eyed, like, what is that?
Well, and crowdfunding a lot of times works great if you have a gadget, right? If you have a device, something you can hold and show and demonstrate.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as great for software or an idea that is a little more abstract.
Well, you said that perfectly because my accountant said that he buys all kinds of stuff through crowdfunding because he'll be the first to get the gadget, and he's a gadget guy, right?
Yeah.
But the advantage I did have was one of my current host was considering having her own station, and I had offered a substantial discount if you paid up front a small amount to have a 6-month station. So she took that deal, which might not have happened if I didn't do the crowdfunding. And I got $50 here, $50 there. So I probably raised about $6,000 there.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. And it's nice to have those connections, those silent partners that can come in and who believe in your vision and can put some money on the table too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to meet some more of those people myself.
I was very fortunate.
Days.
Like I said, this business has taken a life of its own. The right people seem to show up at the right time. Not going as fast as I would like it to. I've been in business for almost 6 years. I don't make a paycheck.
Right.
Not yet. Everybody else does, but not me.
Yeah, we know what it's like to not make a paycheck doing the podcast here too. But fair enough.
So you've got some momentum, and what's the future look like for you then?
2 months out, you said?
Yeah, we're looking at 2 months. I'm going to give it 6 in total because there's always bugs and there's always things to be fixed. And as I said, programmers, I really think they're not people. I think they're little snails disguised as people because they work so slow. But I know why they work slow. And so I do honor and I do appreciate developers. I know why they work slow because this is a system that doesn't exist. I'm not asking them to put together another Walmart. They've already got all of the stuff or all the houses that look the same.
Yeah.
So they're putting together something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So everything is try this, test doesn't work. Try this, test doesn't work. So
Innovation has a cost, and sometimes it's just time.
It is. It is time, and I'm very fortunate to have people involved that aren't charging me an arm and a leg, and I know that their work is just like I've seen their work. They've done some work for us already, and it's amazing what they've done. So a lot of patience when you're working with developers.
Absolutely.
It's taught me that.
Sure.
Really, if you want to have a Buddha moment and learn patience, try to build something and hire a developer.
Yeah, patience, and as well as like not tearing your hair out in the process. Just because things don't always go the way you want. But,
which is hard for entrepreneurs, right? Because we're
true.
we want to get on to the next idea.
Yeah.
We don't want to be stuck working on one idea for 3 years.
My backlog of ideas is I need actually an app to manage just the backlog of undeveloped ideas that I have. Right?
Maybe that's the future. We'll have brain apps, so you can download brain apps into our brain to hold data.
All that stuff. Yeah, that's
Mantra
right.
app.
Well, listen, we want to ask you before we close out. We want to ask you, where we can find you online and stuff. But before we even get to that. There's our fancy sound effects. We're going to dive into the lightning round, and
brace myself.
It's quite challenging. It really, you should have studied.
It's pretty crazy. Don't let the words lightning throw you off. It's not like we're going to time you or something. But
we went from snails to lightning.
Yeah, it's relatively short questions and relatively short answers. But we got 10 questions we're going to throw at you. We'll see how you do. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. So first, give one piece of advice for new startups in 5 words or less.
Have an enormous amount of patience.
Have an enormous amount of patience. 6, but we'll take out one of the...
of.
Amount of... We can make that one word.
Patience.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, excellent. Number 2, how many hours do you work per day?
48.
Mathematically impossible, but we'll accept it. Number 3, who is your ideal investor? Someone who would be investing in you.
I think my ideal investor would be someone who is experienced in what I am doing.
Okay.
With the background, not a competitor.
Right.
Because there's a lot of competition out there.
So they have the money as well as the knowledge.
The vision.
And the experience.
Right.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, number 4, what is one startup skill that you feel you need to get better at?
Patience.
Awesome. What is one startup skill that you believe that you've mastered?
Oh my gosh, that I've mastered. Mm-hmm. Keeping my vision while having the blinders off.
Okay.
It's a dual task.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Number 6, do you use Mac, PC, or Linux?
Mac.
All right.
I don't go back. Once you have a Mac.
And number 7, Android or iPhone?
Oh my gosh. I wish I had an iPhone, but I have an Android.
Android's not bad. I use an Android. It's all good.
I'm so old-fashioned with phones, though, because my computer is glued. My family has joked that they're going to get me one of those baby Snuggies to put my computer in, because I go with it everywhere. I'm like, my phone doesn't mean as much to me.
Okay. No, fair enough. That's good. Okay, number 8, fill in the blank. I'm secretly terrified of what?
Podcasts.
Podcast interviewers.
Number 8, questions on lightning round.
Yeah.
I'm secretly terrified. Success and failure.
Okay.
Ooh.
Both have their own fears. Sure.
Yeah.
Number 9, fill in the blank. If I could have any drink in my hand right now, it would be... Well, you do have a drink, but I don't know if it's your ideal drink. What do you think?
Yeah. Good glass of white wine.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Excellent. And number 10, what is your first purchase you're going to make after your company gets bought out by Google?
An iPhone.
I was just going to say that.
I got it.
I'm going to get an iPhone.
Really? How ironic that Google buys you out and yet you're buying an Apple product
with your first
Google
purchase. I love it.
I want an office in a Google
yeah,
building.
In the Google building? Okay.
Yeah, that'll be in Guelph.
Perfect. And the bonus question is toilet paper, fold or scrunch?
Oh my gosh.
Just to get real personal.
Fold.
Fold. Perfect.
That's 2 folds in a row.
Yeah.
I need to meet a scruncher.
We're going to tally them all up at some point later this year and
maybe
publish
all
the
entrepreneurs
statistics.
are folders.
Yeah, you never know. Excellent. Well, listen, Holly, where can we find you online if we want to kind of follow along with how the story is developing? Studios.fm can we Can we see what's happening there?
www.studios.fm.
Okay.
Of course, the website is being revamped,
Yep.
but you can get basic information there. Just try to make it look sexier.
Okay.
And if you want to get a product view of what it does, that's a2zen.fm.
Okay.
And you can get a hold of me at
A to Zen.
a2zen.fm.
Okay. And
Yeah, so that's A, the number 2, Zen.
Okay.
That's more of a self-help guru. We got a new station launching in a couple of weeks. It's a nature channel.
Okay.
So it's all based around nature.
Awesome.
And but you can get a hold of me through either of those sites or info@studios.fm.
Excellent.
Easy peasy.
And do you guys have like Twitter or any of that going on yet? Or, yeah?
We've got Facebook, so that's A2Zen FM, and the Twitter is A2Zen FM.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is A2Zen FM.
Excellent. So lots of places we can find you, and we'll put some links to those internet destinations up on the post for the podcast so everybody can find you there too. Excellent. Well, let's wrap things up here, guys. So first of all, special thanks to Holly Hall. Thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you.
And for sharing everything about the world of podcasting that we didn't know
Yep.
with us. That's excellent.
It was cool.
We want to thank Innovation Guelph for letting us record here today in their beautiful, well-lit
Sky room.
Yeah.
It is
I don't know that we have a
beautiful.
name
With
for
the
this room. We
windows.
should name it.
We should. That'll be our first task
We'll
after
call it
we're
the
finished
TSP
recording.
pod or something.
Yeah, there we go.
pod
Perfect. And thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us for another episode of TSP Weekly. Please feel free to send us your comments, your questions, your criticisms, and feedback at feedback@tspweekly.com, or you can leave a comment on our website, which is tspweekly.com. So from myself, Darren Conley, from my co-host, Stephen Campbell, and our guest, Holly Hall from studios.fm, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we'll see you all next week.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good one.